So hi, my name is Daniel Young. I work for Findwise, a company in Sweden. I work with helping our customers find, analyze, and act on their data. Really, I work as a Splunk architect and a Java developer. As a Splunk architect, we help our customers both index data and make it visible, create alerting and reporting within Splunk. We also help set up multi-site indexing and big index clusters and search engine clusters. I've been working at Findwise for about 2 years. I also like to do CrossFit and high-intensity training. I love to travel, and I just came back for 5 weeks in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia. So that was great. But what am I supposed to talk to you guys about today is more like the agenda. I'll talk to you about what Findwise does, what we do. Mobitech, our POC, our proof of concept that I will be demoing later on. I'll show you a data deep dive, what kind of data we got from Mobitech, how we worked with that data. I'll also show you, or I'll tell you about why we chose Splunk. And then I'll go on to the demo to show you what we did and how we visualized their data. And then ending up with the business case and trying to match the problems they had to what we did to create business value for both Mobitech and their customers. All right? So Findwise, we were established in 2005. We started out with search and enterprise search platforms, creating search-based applications and making information retrievable for everybody. We're about 100 employees spread across 6 cities in 5 different countries. We've got Copenhagen, Stockholm, and Sweden. We have Oslo, Warsaw, and of course Helsinki here in Finland. We're also a great place to work. I don't know if you have that here in Finland. You probably do. A way to, yeah. So we're top 10, and that's great. At Findwise, we have three different components we specialize in. The first thing is information chaos. We help our customers manage their information, set a structure, typologies, to be able to tag the data in the correct way, or tag the information in the correct way to make it findable for the customers. We also specialize in search platforms. We help people or help our customers set up different search engines, customize them, and help them index data and everything in search engines. And the third part we do is what I'll be talking about today is analytics and big data. We work with Splunk, Elasticsearch, all kinds of open source, and also Hadoop, Hortonworks, and Cloudera. And at Findwise, we have something called findability. And findability is sort of in everything we do. Instead of just focusing on the technology when we work with search or search engines, we want to focus on the business needs and the business goals for your organization. Also the users, of course, and their needs. The technology is still very important, but we also want to focus on the information, because if the information or the logs or the data is not correct or tagged in the correct way, or it's quality data, it won't be in like the search engine, it won't be searchable in the right way. So we focus on that too. And of course, organization, teaching people how to tag data, teaching people how to index data in the correct way, to either a search engine or analytics platform. What do we do with Splunk? So we've been working with Splunk for the past 5 or 6 years, and we specialize in both business analytics. And in business analytics, we sort of analyze search and usage behavior for websites to create a better user experience and increased revenue. We also work with IoT data for Mobitech, for instance, that I'll be showing you today. Operational logging. This is one of the classic I would say, Splunk use cases. For one instance, we have a public, we have one customer that has over 400 applications spread on over 100 different servers. So we help them set up an index cluster of Splunk with clustered search heads to commonize more than 100 gigabytes of data indexed every day, and using with about 40 simultaneous users. So it's a lot of data, right? And data science, we have at Findwise, we have a man named Frederick Moeschelin. He's our senior data scientist, and he's made this pamphlet I brought today. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about this later, and there should be one for everybody in the end. Some of our customer projects, we work with Telia, you probably heard of them, Betsson, PostNord. These are just some of our projects, and of course Mobitech as well. For PostNord, it's more operational logging. For Betsson, it's operational logging. Usually that's the common business case we get. So what do we do at Findwise? Well, we have a variety of Splunk architects that help set up, index, and visualize data for our customers. We have developers that help our customers use these visualizations and reports from Splunk into different applications. So let's say you want to use the REST API for Splunk, you can put it in your other applications. We have business analysts to analyze the business needs and business. We have data scientists to use machine learning toolkit to really analyze in a different way the data. And of course, user experience front end and information management, and also GDPR specialists. But what about Mobitech? So Mobitech is a global leader in creating passenger information on trains and buses. So passenger information is all these signs you see when you're on the bus or on the train. Do you have these in Finland?
We do, but I'm not sure if that's Mobitech. But
You have the same, all right, of course. So they make these signs and all these components. So they have all these IoT components that generate logs and generate data all the time, just streaming data. So they decided to, they had all these components, but they weren't really sure. They weren't really sure how to use the data. They couldn't visualize the data. They didn't have the insight in their components to say, okay, this thing is, they couldn't go to their customer and say, hey, this component is broken. You need to switch it. Usually the customer would come to them and say, hey, we got a problem with this sign. It's not showing the right thing it's supposed to be doing. So they came to us and said, how can we make sense of this data? Is there anything that for us to see in our components that we have out on our buses and our trains? Can we use the data? Can we use the data from our components and say, okay, maybe we want to be able to be more proactive. We want to, instead of our customers coming to us and telling something's wrong, we want to go to our customers and say, hey, you got a problem with this component. Here's the replacement. We've got a guy on our way. More like active. And yeah, they really want to know, what can we see from our data? Is there anything that we need to know? So usually at Findwise, we work in different ways. Sometimes the customer has the knowledge of what they want to see, what they want to get. But in this case, Mobitech were pretty blind. They didn't really know what they wanted. They wanted to be able to see what their components were doing, if there was any warnings, if there was anything wrong. So they gave us data from 2 different bus companies, 7 different buses for 2 weeks. And they give us 2 different types of data. I'll go through this. One kind of data is the PID data, and this data the components will just send out measurement values. So let's say it could be the voltage or the temperature of the board, the temperature of the sign. It could be saying just send out data about what's the temperature of the sign, or the voltage, or how much data they're uploading and downloading. The DTC data is more like warnings. It would say, okay, it's too hot. We're overheating. We're losing communications. So it would send out warnings from these components. And as well, we got 2 translation documents that would say, well, this code, 000, actually means lost communication. So that way we could use these documents to sort of enrich the data. I'll tell you more. And why Splunk? Well, we chose to use Splunk because it's fast. I mean, Mobitech would give us the data on a Friday. I would index it into Splunk and make visualizations and reports and be able to show the customer the next Friday, say, hey, to get feedback. What do you think about this? It's very fast to just get in and get it up there. Also, I mean, making sense out of unstructured data, it's easy with Splunk to parse the data to get out all the metadata fields, to get the correct fields for, okay, this code means this. And enrich the content by using these translations documents. And of course, rapid analysis. It's straight from zero. As soon as you've indexed the data, you can see it. I'll show you in a bit. So I'll show you what we did. We started off with just ingesting the data into Splunk to see what were we working with. See if I can get this up here. You got to tell me if that's, let's see here. Can you see that all right, or is this better? There's not much to see, really.
This is better.
This is better. All right, so this is the data we got from Mobitech. I don't know if you guys can see if there's anything you recognize, but this is pretty machine-like data, right? I mean, if you're trained, if you got a trained eye, you might be able to see that, okay, this is a date. Maybe this is a longitude or this is a latitude, but more than that, it's just not really too much to go get. So this is what we started with, and the thing is, like, when you get the translations or content enrichment gets really important in this case because it allows us to make sense out of this data. So we started out, okay, I want to start out to see sort of, okay, I want to take one type of measurement and I want to visualize it. I want to say, okay, the board sense temperature in our buses. How does it look? For a vehicle, which is a bus number, we could say, okay, what's the average board temperature? Just to visualize it, just to say what's going on in our component. So we visualize the average board temperature, show the number of logs above 40 degrees, and then the current temperature, right? See if I can update this and get this full. We also were able to, by using the geopoint data, we could also show where about the temperature was already over 40 degrees on the map. And we could see what day of the week it was. And why is Monday special? I don't know, but we could see that there's something going on Mondays. So this is a way where we could just visualize the data and say, okay, there is something. We can see what's going on by visualizing it. What we did next was really, okay, we want to see what are the warnings sent out. Let's say we want to be able to see, okay, why is this bus stopped? Why is it lost communication, for instance? So by using this, I love this in Splunk, that it's the ability to drill down and say, and just like take two. Like in this case, we have 3 different bus numbers, right? And we have one type of error. So we can just compare all these buses and say, is there something strange going on with this special bus? Or how can we compare them? So let's see here. We can see pretty quick that we've got, well, how many errors the last 24 hours. We can see that per bus, or for all the buses, or for all the errors. But we can also see here, it's pretty clear that we can say, okay, this bus sticks out. There's something going on here. We can see that by visualizing the data, right? So one of the first problems with what's going on in our components, it's pretty fast to index in data and just show it like this. Hey, bus 1220 is giving us a bunch of warnings for lost communication. We could also set up alerts or reports to say, okay, when this bus or when any bus shoots out warnings, more than 20 warnings, more than 10 warnings, we could have an email sent to our technician, or we could send an email straight to our customer, or create an issue in our own systems, right? So this is what I love to do, is just people give me the data and I can go science a little bit on it. And then the last part I did was take that data and correlate these two different sources, because I want to see, is the board temperature directly causing the warnings? Let's say, can we correlate the board temperatures, the highest board temperatures, to the warnings of high temperature, for instance? So by using a simple chart overlay in Splunk, you're able to see the overheating warnings compared to the internal CPU and the board sense temperature, which allows us to say, okay, this is the highest board sense temperatures readings for that instance. So we've got overheating warnings here and here and here, and we can see that the temperatures are high. But we have no warnings, we have no temperatures. So we try to correlate the data, say, how can these affect each other? And I did the same thing with invalid data. So we have an invalid data, which is a warning, and download and upload traffic on all ports. Now, I don't have enough insight into their business to say, okay, this is right. This is exactly how it is, because I'm not into I don't have all the knowledge of their data. But the power of Splunk is to be able to correlate these two events, these two different sources. And I think that by using this, they will be able to work more proactively and say, okay, we know exactly what's wrong. We know exactly that you're downloading traffic on that port. That's what's causing this error. And they should be able to proactively tell the customer that instantly. So let me get back to the business case. And yes, the data is useful as it is. By indexing the data into Splunk, they were able to see what was going on in all their components. They were able to set up proactive alerts, say, okay, if this is going on, do this. If we have more than 15 warnings about this, send me an email or run a script or whatever you need. And their data is streamed live, real-time data into Splunk. So they have visibility. I think they're about 2 or 3 seconds delay from the data to coming into Splunk. And what we're working on now with Mobitech is new insight to customer. We want to sell back the data to the bus company. So we want for Mobitech, they want their customers to have their own dashboard to see what's going on in their components. Or say, hey, this is where your bus is, this is the problems we have, this is what we've been doing, and just being able to give that value back to their customers. And the next thing we're working on, or the what ifs, is, okay, targeted commercials. So we know we have geopoint data for all these buses. We could say, if you're here in Helsinki on this street, try this bar, or try this supermarket on the next left. So the targeted ads could be very, very specific for where the bus would be. And the discussions have moved to a whole new level. So now we're working with them, trying to index more data and making greater visualizations and talking about the what ifs instead of the core business value. Yeah, making more. So that was all I had about Mobitech. If you're interested in more and making the most out of analytics, you should read this pamphlet by Fredrik Michelin. We have a bunch of of seminars in Stockholm. And if you wish to join them, you should feel free to contact Eva or me, and we'll help you get set up with the Splunk. Yeah, that was all for me. Thank you very much. What are your questions?
Can you go back to the business case slide, like a few slides back?
Sure.
Yeah, I think this is what I like most about this case, is that we start out with components, and kind of basic stuff, and then suddenly when we come with them with answers, okay, so here we have this. Then we suddenly realize that we can use this data for something completely else, and that was so fascinating for me, at least when I heard about this case. So what if we, instead of just looking at these components, we sell this data back to the buses, and we start to do this ad, and that's what we're currently discussing.
Yeah.
Much more than anything else that we actually started with. You said POC, but this is in production, right?
This is now in production, yes. It started out with a proof of concept that I demoed this for them. They took it and put it into production now. They got a Splunk cloud working at Splunk Lite. I think they've got a 1 gigabyte license right now, but they're planning on scaling up. So I think they've got Sweden, but they've got 50 plus countries. So.
Questions from you guys? Any questions?
Yeah. What about in the case that there is many companies they are using Splunk and they are kind of collecting all the data, but it's private data, but they are not currently sharing it with nobody. But if there is kind of one company that would like to use all of those company Splunk data also, can you kind of combine different accounts in Splunk that they can share information in different companies?
And different companies, I would say you can.
Yeah, so you can match out that if you are kind of doing cooperation with these companies.
Okay.
One is logistics and one is packing, but they are different companies, but they are kind of collecting all the data in their own processes.
Okay. Yes, you could. I would say the short answer is yes, you can. Saying that I would create a multi-site indexing. You have to have this? You could have the data in different separate Splunk instances, but it would be a problem shooting them back and forth. So I would say you would probably have a multi-site Splunk index, where they would have one index from their side and they would push data to this index, and then you would probably share. And you could put in Splunk. The good thing about Splunk too is you can put security on index level. So let's say you want to be able to see indexes from production, from manufacturing to sending out orders and all the way, but you want to give somebody else just the possibility to see, okay, you can just see the orders. You can do that on index level, put that security. That's why Splunk is good too in a bigger company where you can say you would use the same data. Like for security, you want to see the web servers, for instance, but you would also want to see the web servers from maybe the business side, how people are using your website. So you would share the data, but in that case, it's hard. It depends. You could create a multi-site index. Yes. So Emil probably knows more about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Splunk has a very fine-grained control. So it's absolutely possible to do what we call a hybrid search. So you can give a search and access to a number of indexes, which is different locations. So for instance, you have, just as Daniel explained it, you can have one index sitting in the cloud with Splunk data on, and you can have one on-prem, and maybe a sister company or a different entity has their own Splunk index with that data. And then you can give the search head, which is where the user set access to these different indexes, depending on his role and who's logged in and whatever, right? So you have the full security control there as well. And by the way, the security control is always included in Splunk. It's not, it's not a separate lineup, and you have to get right. It's all enterprise scale. So you can give the access to this user for this type of report with these credentials. You can go to these different places and get data, and the user don't have to know that the data comes from different Splunk indexes. You just open his dashboard and you will get the data from different sources, and they can be correlated as well. So for instance, you can correlate this onboard sensor data with weather data from from the government weather services. Is it warm temperature around this bus at this time of the day on this location with the with the latitude and longitude, for instance, right? So this could all be grabbed and grouped into one report. So exactly, that's a perfect use case for what we would like to do.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So then you mentioned the GDPR as one possible use case. Do you guys have some sort of ideas or some examples or something on that area?
Yeah, the GDPR is very interesting. I don't know if you all know about GDPR. The personal, it's gonna take over from the. I don't know what's called in Finland. You probably have one too. Swedish is personuppgiftslagen, which is just all personal information. But within Splunk, you can do a search. So it's like a search engine. So all the content is indexed. So you can search for a person's name, a social security number, or whatever you would need, and then perform a delete action on that information if that's what you need. If you want to know everything a person has been involved with, because then you would have to do a search as well, and then you can handle GDPR, but it's not. I'm not sure how. It depends on what you need to do. If you want to delete, sure.
Yeah.
And if you want to find stuff, of course, you can do it, but it takes more.
I think it's still, I think it's settling a little bit for every organization how this GDPR is going to affect them, right? So it's, but what we know with Splunk is a lot of customers use Splunk for compliance reporting, right? So it could be really anything searching for personal details or information, see if they're still around in the systems. But also when you have, I think everyone heard about the penalties if you're leaking data. So you only have a couple of days to report back to the authorities and to your customers if the data has been reached. So even if an incident, an IT incident, a security incident happens, you have a small window of opportunity to avoid these penalties. But I think that's really when if you have your data stored in Splunk and can do really powerful reporting on how does this breach if it happened. It's always, you should always plan you should try to avoid it, but you should also plan in case it happens anyway, right? Because we can't even predict everything that could happen.
Yeah.
To report how did it affect you, be able to have these reports and have a plan to avoid getting the penalty situation. Because that, I think if you get a full penalty on your organization, I think every organization in Europe would hurt pretty bad of having to give up up to 5 to 10% of their
Revenue, right?
revenue. So no one's want to do that. So I think Splunk is really going to be a valuable tool for being ready to handle that situation and to be able to comply with regulations around that as well.
Both for like security incident and information and
One thing you can do, you can download Splunk, and there's an app around GDPR that one partner has created, and you can have a little bit look at. It's not, it doesn't solve the GDPR problem, but it sort of shares some light over, how they look at Splunk and what type of reporting that's maybe relevant to that. So that's something to look a little bit on, and also we are also preparing. We'll have some more information coming over the coming year on how Splunk can support GDPR.
I'd like to know, what did you mean by GDPR? Because GDPR it's many things, but I guess were you sort of referring to this, that the person is, you need to know what information you have where, and you need to be able to give that data.
And then of course, and even though people are mostly talking about these things from the individual perspective, like what kind of data you have stored about me, but basically for companies, mostly, I think the baseline there is that you need to safeguard the data.
Yeah.
Then you need to be really careful with that, so that you do everything right. And then on top of that, you need to implement those features, like how can you find out what in this one individual.
Yeah.
Those are sort of course, on the top because they are sort of the functional requirements. But then you have the non-functional stuff which must be sort of bulletproof.
I totally agree. I mean, because everyone's talking about this, you need to be able to export the data from one single customer, be able to delete it or be able to correct it if that's wrong. That's the sort of the thing that many people are talking about, which is sort of lifting a lot of noise.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to know that you have this personal data and where you have it, and that it actually is safeguarded. And this is where I think Splunk comes very much in, that you can recognize that this is sensitive personal data. Where do I actually have this? I didn't know that I have this in these logs.
Yeah,
The logs are GDPR covered as well as these database systems.
Yeah.
But people might not even know that these logs exist if you have this information.
Exactly. So it's actually you can even say that it's more on the security side than on privacy side. The real benefit, because when you get the overview, to the holistic overview, to all data, all logs you have, then you have a sort of a chance to do those things like.
And it's way more than just logs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, yeah. So like logs, so Splunk is a great example for logs and for the security part. But also, I mean, indexing all the data in your enterprise in a search engine would automatically show you, being able to find all the data, but also show you where all the data is. So let's say you have data on an individual and it's all in a search engine, you would be able to know exactly where the source is and be able to delete it.
And of course the fast, like ask any question kind of thing is very tempting in that sense that when you know that you have 72 hours and
Yeah.
if something has happened, then it would be very, very drastic to start looking for every single Tomcat instance you have in your
Yeah.
business, for example,
Yeah.
separately.
Well, then it's probably too late anyway, but
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you could be prepared and have a set of reporting that probably shows, at least what you need to do. And specifically also hunt down the security breach by the way, which is very much a very strong Splunk use case.
I have a question about this Movitech case, just because I think this is quite interesting. You said that we now got like a small bit of data with the customer without question, or with a lot of questions, but without actually knowing what they want from you. Is this a normal way for us to start working with the customer?
Yeah, I would say so. It's sometimes when the customer doesn't really know, or the customer knows there's something, but they don't really know the exact business case or the exact what they want out. They don't know that they want to see this or this. Usually we get a lot of data. We do a proof of concept, and so we work with. I get the data. I put it into Splunk. I put it into an instance. Try to visualize it. Come back to the customer. Get feedback. Talk to the customer about a week. Go back, do some changes, and then show a final show of the proof of concept, the demo. And then after that, we take conversations to either to implement it or if we want to have a smaller scale, bigger scale, it depends. So that's usually how we work with this type of data. Yeah. Any other questions?
May I continue a little bit the previous discussion? I'm Juha Tamminen from E2 Software. As Splunk is, you can use it like data centers in different time zones, and your indexes in different time zones, and the events that happens in different time zones has the different time event in the timestamp in the events. But when you have a centralized search head, and you are looking here in Finland, what happened yesterday? Actually, Splunk automatically converts the time, the Australian indexer, to match what happened yesterday in Finland during time. When you are looking for if someone has tried to reach your personal information or something like that. So that's totally automatic. When you are using different indexers, which are those data stores, and the separate search head. Search head knows that one is in a different time zone and this indexer is in a different time zone and stuff. It really helps when you need to look at those Tomcat log files. The Australian, the timestamp is different than in Finland.
Yes, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.